Thank you very much, everybody. This is Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. This is the Citywide Neighborhood Committee. Our sole purpose for being the neighborhood. That is our sole purpose. We have our sole purpose is that. That's why always the first part of the business is any start with you.
And
Or the vice chair, but we'll fix. Wayne in Portsmouth. And it's been great.
Mark and I lived in Portsmouth. Excited to be on this committee. Always this committee for the outreach to the neighborhoods.
Hi everyone, I'm Elaine Appetang Butts. This is also my first time on the committee. I'm very excited to be here. Oh, sorry. I'm from 520 Ocean Road, Ward 3.
Hi, I'm John Tabor, and I'm the City Council liaison to the Citywide Neighborhoods Committee. And I live in the South End, but it's great to hear people from Ward 3 and Ward 1 in this committee.
I'm Larry Cataldo, I'm the chair. 133 Islington Street, Ward 2. I've been at this business since 2015, and prior to that, I was on the infamous taxi commission, in which case I decided that competition really needs us to dissolve the commission. It took about 16 months for that to happen, and competition did come in anyhow. Anyhow, welcome everybody, welcome the new members. I'd like to first start with anybody in the audience who has something to say. Why don't you come up and just, do you have Kevin, do you have a
We don't
mic?
have handheld.
I would like to give you one. No, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mary Lou McElwain, 259 South Street. I live right near Mount Vernon, right next to Wild Valentine, little flower and coffee shop.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. So my husband and I have been here since the fall of '99. And I want to preface my comments by saying I know that it's been a tough 2 years for the DPW. The demands have been high. The staffing has been lower than usual. The budget has not allowed for any expenditures such as new equipment or more staffing. So I'll preface with, I get it, I understand that. But I'm here to talk about sidewalks, and that Portsmouth is considered a walkable city, but really not in the winter. And I walk almost every day in different neighborhoods. And it's been a very, very difficult year to perambulate the city. Although downtown is always clean to the quick, right down to the bricks. In the immediate downtown, the roads are clear as can be, but you can't get there. So walking in the street is not safe. This is a city that has elementary, middle, and high school where the kids are walking to school. Parents are pushing their strollers, got their kids by their side, and they're trying to get to school. And it's difficult. We have many housing authority residents who can't leave their buildings because the sidewalks are not clear. I know that there's not new. But I think this has been an especially icy year. Actually, I fell for the first time on a city sidewalk this year. I was coming from South Street to Junkins, and I slid on that little, whatever it's called, that goes from the sidewalk to the road because of the ice. And I wasn't injured, but I understand that there were many falls in Portsmouth this year. I don't know the numbers. I don't know how many miles of sidewalks we have. I haven't been able to find that online. But truly, it's not a walkable city in the winter. And I think we need to, just sort of petition or somehow get the city council to understand that because of the size of this community and the people who live here, we want to be outside. It's very much an outside place, and especially for the past 2 years with COVID, people want to be outside. I see it's usually young women, but some men too, who use the Masonic Lodge, not lodge, parking lot, and they walk downtown to the beauty school, and they're trudging with their suitcases. I see people who are going from Crossroads House to Rite Aid or to Market Basket, and they're on the street. So I just have to say, I hope that we can make some improvements. Interestingly, I found an article from 2019 from the Christian Science Monitor that talks about in Ottawa, Canada, they formed a group called the Snow Moles. And I'd like to get that going because these are people who go out on the streets. We do have Click and Fix, so we can report those. But they go out on the streets and they record an intersection. They record a sidewalk that you can't maneuver. So I'd like to work with the Citywide Neighborhood Association.
Committee.
And with, committee. And maybe with the PTA and of the different schools and work with them on that. So basically, I get it, Peter Rice behind me, that the budget is constrained. But, I think we need to advocate for all of us who are out walking. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
We'll sign you up.
Okay.
You are signed up at the end of the meeting. You'll be fingerprinted, photographed, and signed into this. This is I'll give Peter a chance in a second, but I do have a comment, and I'll allow anyone else before Peter speaks. I also agree, because I live on Islington Street, and I have seen where there have been considerable delays in that sidewalk plowing. Eventually, 3 or 4 days will pass, and then everything will be cleaned up. But initially, it's pretty tough. And I know that downtown is almost always first. And like yourself, I walked a number of years when I first arrived here. I walked all over the place during the winter, and I've had similar experiences. So I've had to have either crampons or snow grips in order to walk around. Any case, does anyone else have any observations before we introduce Peter?
I can say something.
Okay, go ahead, please. Same subject, I presume?
It's related, but it shouldn't affect DPW.
Okay.
My name is Elizabeth Spires. I live at 241 South Street, and my husband and I walk all over the place. And we've noticed that in several places, people are allowing their bushes to overtake the sidewalk. Their bushes or trees, whatever, they come right out onto the sidewalk, so you have to walk into the street or something. And I think that people should be held accountable for keeping their bushes and trees trimmed so that people don't have to go single file or off the sidewalk in order to walk. I don't know if there's a law or ordinance or something about that, but I
Okay,
think we should think about that.
thank you very much. That sounds reasonable. Anyone else? Is there anyone, wait, why don't we have Peter respond to this particular one? Peter, you can come up to the mic. And then if there's anything else that comes from Peter, then or any one of us, we'll just wait. Peter, thank you very much for coming, appreciate it.
My pleasure. This is, Mary Lou, there's 77 miles of sidewalk. The budget constraints haven't really impacted purchase of equipment and rolling stock. Was there, it's not necessarily an equipment issue from us. It's a combination of staffing, having adequate staff, and also the storms, the way storm operations occur. We do the road plowing first, and what happens is we follow in with the sidewalk tractors afterwards. At the end, because we work our way from the highest use pedestrian areas first, which is the downtown area, and the safe routes to schools. The challenge is that if you have a particularly long storm, or if the storm falls in a wrong cycle, the staff are at the end, they're exhausted, they've been plowing all night, and then they're asked to get into the tractors, and it's often challenging to get staff into the tractors. By union contracts and by safety rules, it's hard to force people once they've been exhausted into a tractor. This year in particular, we had two storms which were very challenging. The one that sticks in my mind the most is the one where we had sleet, probably about 4 inches of sleet, which set up like concrete on the sidewalk. And unless you were there shoveling it constantly, you had to get out there with an ice chopper to get that away. So the downtown is broken. We break our areas up into the downtown area, which the parking division is responsible for. Parking revenues, not taxes, pay for the clearing of the downtown areas. So that's a real benefit to the taxpayers. They may not realize that. So in addition to $3 million or $2.4 million direct contribution to to offset taxes on the general fund, parking budgets cover the downtown snow removal as well. So that's a tangible benefit to the taxpayers. The ability to be able to stay on top of that and having a designated sidewalk tractor to go around continuously is very different than a lot of the sidewalks around the city, because you have much less amount of sidewalks downtown to be able to address. And you have staff that are devoted to doing that specific route around there. And you don't have trucks and plows necessarily pushing back the snow onto the sidewalks. The challenge throughout, especially Route 1, which you point out, it's a major concern from my perspective, because of the safety of pedestrians, is that Department of Transportation plows that section. And whenever we have to wait until they're done plowing, and they wing everything onto the sidewalk. And so what happens is we'll do the sidewalk tractor, and then they'll just wing it back on top of it. And so we're left with a very challenging situation. So we're playing push and pull. We do our best to get the sidewalks cleared as quickly as possible. And for the most part, we do a pretty good job staying on top of it. We understand that people would like all the sidewalks cleared as soon as the storm lets up. That is a very challenging expectation to meet. So we talk about how do we do better on a regular basis. After each storm, we look at it and we say, what could we have done differently to make this better? And we try to learn from our mistakes, or the lack of efficiency. So your concerns are not falling on deaf ears. I truly appreciate, and I know, especially during COVID times, a lot of people are wanting to walk, they want to get out. And it was treacherous. It was extremely treacherous. So for those, those are challenges, and the things that would help, having additional staff would be helpful.
Doing what?
Having additional staff would be helpful. We've looked at adjusting the way the staffing, so one of the challenges is that in addition to doing all the snow removal stuff, we also have to get the solid waste picked up the next day. So for the most part, unless it's a weekend. So staff is often up all day and then they have to get on the back of trucks, which can be very dangerous as well. So it's a difficult balance, but I feel, we do on a whole, we do a very good job. And this year was, 2 storms in particular were very challenging. And, I was not happy. I did note there were areas of the city that were clear and there were areas that were not. Looking at that, I had conversations with foremen. We learned from those types of lessons. As to the bushes overtaking sidewalks, that's an ongoing battle. It becomes a private property challenge because for us to go in and trim back, there are rules that allow us to trim back the hedges. We start with reaching out to the property owners. If they're willing to work with us, we're cut them back. Oftentimes, it's really it's a matter of replacing cutting completely down, and oftentimes the residents are not willing to participate with that. So that's an ongoing challenge, and we try to get folks to voluntarily do it, and it turns into having legal department reach out to them, and then it's not something that an easy task to accomplish. So that's it.
Can I just add? No, I read my notes.
So, Peter, she suggested a corner watch and report back that saying that this neighborhood was, or this area was not plowed, or this area was very difficult, or this area is treacherous. Would that help you?
I would say we already have that. It's all the residents that people are not shy to let us know what their concerns are. So dispatch is informed on a regular basis about concerns of lack of plowing. What would be helpful is patience. Wintertime is challenging for us all. We try to do our best, and we understand. Obviously, if there are areas that are not plowed properly and the sidewalks are not done, it's good to hear about it. Sometimes staff do forget areas, they get tired and they take a left when they should take a right, and they leave an area that, for whatever reason, should have been plowed and didn't get plowed. Sometimes there are sections of sidewalks that are not, they're incomplete sections of sidewalk, so it's hard for the staff to get in there, or there are impediments in the way, whether it's a street sign or a light pole or something. So it becomes challenging to get in there. In the south end in particular, there's a lot of really narrow sidewalks. We've recently started having some of our staff going with walk behind snow blowers. So that's been able to address some of those concerns. But that's very labor intensive and it takes time. And depending on the type of snow, it can go really slowly or it can go quicker. So it's always good to hear from the residents, their concerns. If the committee feels a snow watch is something that they would find appropriate, that's great. I don't think it's necessarily going to improve our understanding because we are already getting feedback from residents. But I have no qualms about additional information and additional feedback.
Thank you, Larry. Peter, what about the idea of perhaps the residents who can report the condition of the sidewalks that they see to your department, maybe through the click and fix, and that there would be some kind of a dynamic system where if I wanted to find out how safe are the sidewalks in my area, I could find out by going to your website and saying, what things look like, and it might be like a red, yellow, green coding to say, okay, those sidewalks are still not safe. Is that a possibility? Would that help at all? And then secondly, regarding the cutting bushes and things, is that something people could report to the click and fix to you? Would that be
That's a fine way to do it. The Tree and Greenery Committee also is a venue that you can bring it to Ed Park and Path and Safety if there's a sidewalk. Click and fix is a great spot to start. Usually, where we know where those hedges are, because it's not the first time we've had complaints relative to it. And, one jumps out, at the end of Woodbury Avenue and Bartlett Street, or Bartlett Street, jumps to mind out of the gate. That's an ongoing challenge. In terms of being able to put together like a dynamic condition map, that's an interesting idea. We don't have staffing available to be able to make it a valid, useful tool for people. We are the implementers. We are the ones doing in the city. We're not the outreach group. We're not the communications group. Not that the city has one of those things, but we have some staff that are devoted to those types of things, and they do a good job. But any of those types of things become almost actually extracurricular, and given the workload that all our staff has right now, it would be very challenging to be able to do it effectively or even ineffectively.
Yes.
I'm just, curious about the areas in the sidewalks that are difficult. Are they little, zones where Peter had said are difficult for the plow units to get through, or are they entire stretches of sidewalk that you're referring to?
Well, it's a combination of both. There on Bartlett Street, there's a number of pinch points that make it challenging to get around, and the guys go off the sidewalk and back on the sidewalk. When staff is available, we'll go back up with a shovel and we'll clean it up. South end, there's a bunch of cobble or Durham paver sections along Marcy Street, which is very narrow. Some of the residents have taken it upon themselves, and it's very much appreciated, to get out there and plow and sidewalk blow, snow blow that stuff. It's awesome. Very much appreciated, because it's something that becomes really difficult for us. We try to get as much as we can, but we really have, the staff that's doing that is also clearing the stairways downtown. They're helping make sure different access points downtown are opened up. And, really it's a matter of, trying to make sure as much of this, connectivity can be maintained. They also do Prescott Park, it's the Prescott Park crew that's doing that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with the question is, as a neighborhood committee and as a community, if we can work with the DPW, if there are pinch points in little places that if the neighbors know about, and do what we can to help out. I think collectively we can get a lot more done.
That would be awesome. Anytime residents, especially hydrants, if people have a hydrant next to their house, shovel out the hydrant, that's awesome, because that's something that we try to get to as quickly as possible. But sometimes it takes a week before we can get there. Pinch points, if there's a section or drain manholes, catch basins. If you got a catch basin there, shovel it off. That's very helpful as well. Anything residents feel they can take on would be greatly appreciated. It's really when I grew up as a child, we had to shovel our sidewalks, and it was you did it, and then I would go down and I'd do a number of neighbors that weren't capable of doing it, because my mother would hit me on the head and say, "You go down and do that." So I spent a lot of time going down the street, and I got a nice Argyle sweater one time. Woman was appreciative. But your point is well taken. If residents are capable and interested and willing, that's anything they do is helpful.
Come up to the microphone if you'd like to talk, please.
To that end, I have a suggestion to get the word out. One, if we have really bad sidewalks, after a storm, perhaps in the city of Portsmouth newsletter, they could, since we don't have the resources to do a map and so forth, there could just be an alert. Be aware, where your crampons or your yak tracks, and be careful going out there. Just a little reminder to people not to expect,
Anybody want to
Because Jim Splain was in here and then left, and then he came back, and then he left again, and he had his hand both times, but he's not here right now.
All right, well, I will make an announcement.
letting
saying
people
if
know,
anyone from
my husband and I
outside
are
wants to
just
make a
retired
comment, this is a good
weekends
time.
are shoveled.
Okay.
You know, we don't mind going out and shoveling, it's good exercise. So, I mean, if we know that we would be helping by shoveling, the local fire hydrant or the manhole cover thing, catch basin thing. We're happy to do that. I mean, I just naturally do that in front of our house. And I think we could also do the fire hydrant down the street. But, but there's probably lots of people like us. So if there could be a little reminder in the City of Portsmouth newsletter, comes out every day or every week or whatever it is.
Yes,
Every day, but
it's a good point. Seasonally, we usually send a notice out saying, please be aware, keep your stuff off the sidewalk, if you have planters and things like that. And we could add the awareness of icy conditions to the regular newsletter. That'd be something that'd be worthwhile doing. That'd be great.
yeah, because sometimes people don't think about it. They don't realize, and just having a tickler.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a very good idea. I mean, I myself had shoveled a good portion in front of 133 all the way over to Killam, Cafe Killam, because I wanted a cup of coffee. It's an ulterior motive, and I did it this year during the second storm. So I like the idea that people should be encouraged to go out and shovel if they're capable of doing it, and being careful, especially at my age, about going out and doing it. And I think that's probably something that an awareness campaign wouldn't be such a bad idea. I mean, this isn't an adversarial thing. The city is the only one to shovel them. If they don't shovel them, I complain. That's baloney. I mean, I think a lot of people would like to go out and get a little exercise and do so. So I think maybe there's some merit in that type of encouragement. I haven't heard anything about that in a long time, and people complain, and they really should be willing to shovel if necessary. They shovel their stairs, why not? I mean, their driveways and things like that. So anyhow, that's with it. At this point, I'd like to ask Kevin let's open this up to anybody in the Zoom. We got about 10 or 12 people who haven't signed in. Anybody who wishes to make comments or ask questions, this is the time to do it.
It's just, one person, no hands raised.
I think Jim Splain was interested in doing something.
Yeah, he's not in here anymore, though.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just.
All right, so the answer is no?
Yep, looks like no. Yep.
Okay.
No, yep.
Okay, thank you. Anything else before we move to the next one? Yes, please.
Just mentioning Jim Splain, I actually had a cup of coffee with a week or two ago, and we were talking about the time capsules that they're, and he's doing kind of a featuring, a visioning of, Portsmouth in 30 years in the future. And we got to talking about the neighborhood committee and thought it would be fun. So it's throwing this out as an idea, not actionable yet, but maybe tied to the night out, the summer night out in August, that maybe neighborhoods do their own little neighborhood time capsule as kind of as an exercise and as an activity also to kind of connect the kids with the older residents and kind of to really stitch people in the neighborhoods together with a singular activity.
That's a very interesting point. I mean, we're talking to the folks of Portsmouth 400, and the idea of starting in 2022 to see if we couldn't get some sort of history, if that's what they want, because I've already asked our own liaison person to tell us if there were any specific events that they wanted us to address in this year, and she said not yet. So I think they're still well into the planning process at the moment. So I think that's a very good idea, and we probably like to pursue it a little further when we get closer to National Night Out, which will be August 2nd.
Larry, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to come this evening. Have a good evening. And
Thank you very much.
Appreciate feedback as always. It's always good to hear.
There's no blame, just looking at it.
Peter,
I just wanted to ask you, do you have enough staff and equipment to address the sidewalks? I walk on the sidewalks every day, and it's been pretty good, to be honest with you, but there are icy spots.
The challenge is all when things are perfect, you know, the guys are rested, they're not on vacation, the storm happens at the right time, it's the right set of snow, everything works great. Equipment doesn't break, everything works great. It's one of those compounded things where, you know, we got a couple people out sick. That one storm we didn't have, the first storm we had a lot of snow, and it was difficult. We had 4 people out with COVID. They were all sidewalk tractor operators. And to get in those sidewalk tractors, they are very challenging to operate.
Are they?
Yeah, they are not easy pieces of equipment.
How
They
many do you
swing
have?
quickly. We have 6, but 5, well, we have one downtown, and we have 4 or 5 that go around, that go around the rest of the city. But we had 4 of our staff out with COVID. So, you know, everybody were pulling in foremen to plow, and it was a very challenging storm from that standpoint. The second one around was just, it was the sleet or whatever that, it was just, it was
Raining ice.
It's set up like part of the road, it just kept layering and layering and layering. And it was, you know, it was brutal. It was a terrible storm. I've never seen anything like it, ever. Even the ice storms.
As it landed, I couldn't, it was ice.
Yeah, it was weird. And it's set up, it bonded with water content. It was
Oh,
just so
I couldn't shovel it down. So this article on, if I might just add, Larry, that I got, in Iowa commented on that climate change is changing how bed is for ice, and that becomes a real challenge, especially if it's, 8 o'clock on Sunday night, that this ice storm comes in. So, it's just an observation and a comment as to how we work through this.
So that, we piloted, we had an equipment manufacturer come in, they had an ice crusher, and it's literally, it looks like a big, huge meat tenderizer. And we tried crushing the ice. Unfortunately, it was long enough after the storm, so it really didn't give us a good feel for how it worked. But they use it on airport, flight lines and stuff like that a lot. But, it's an additional piece of equipment, it's expensive. And how, if it becomes a more frequent occurrence, then we need to start looking at changing our operations. So I appreciate the feedback. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Okay, now, if we have no other comments for the moment, I'd like to go into the committee business, which really is about what we should do for the rest of the year. Now, sometimes what we do all the time, or every year, we repeat ourselves and we just keep going on and on. But this year, I'd like to have an opportunity to address some of the issues or some of the action items that we have in the past and some of the issues. And maybe we can have some sort of consensus here today about how we should proceed for the rest of the year. It can't be all done by the chair. Kathy Berger on the previous chair said that for over 5 months, nobody in the committee did anything, and she was the only one running it. That doesn't happen with me. I'm going to be away. I'm going to be in different places. The vice chair and everyone else needs to help if they want to work on a certain program, and even neighbors who, like what you have, suggesting some action items, I think that's a very good idea. And all of those cannot be done by the chair alone. And therefore, it's very important that we go through the list and say, is this enough? Why don't you, Kevin, could you go to the third slide? That's it, thank you. Perfect. All right. On the left-hand side, you see some of the major things that we have been dealing with in 2021 and even prior to that. I'll start with the first, Portsmouth 400. We've had committee people talk about what's going on in 2023, very exciting, lots of action, a lot of activities, parades, ships, historic homes, and so forth. And so far, we don't have anything on the table for a specific action item. I think the committee for Portsmouth 400 would like us probably to contact neighborhoods at some point in time and actually communicate certain activities or events or things that neighborhoods need to do. I've given them a complete list of the neighborhoods that we know of and but not who's in charge because that's confidential. Nevertheless, we have about 17 to 19 active neighborhoods that we can say they form a group. And I'll be very happy to share that with anybody who would like to see that list. They've been active in National Night Out, and especially, and that's usually the only time that we really get to talk to what I call the neighborhood representatives. At one time, it was like 25. So, considering National Night Out as the marker, it's not a bad list, and people, for the most part, are active. So we'll have to wait for the committee at Portsmouth 400 to let us know what particular action item we might be able to help them with, and I will invite them to one of our meetings, and they can spell it out, what they would like us to do, and then we can organize ourselves how we want to address whatever they have to say. On sound barriers, that's still up in the air, but it affects many, many neighborhoods. We did have a speaker come in and he talked about what I call near progress, if you want to call it that, where somehow the idea of the sound barriers on Route 95, it gets closer to some sort of completion. It has to do with the executive committee. I'm sure that the PDD might have a little more insight on that when the time comes, but it's certainly an issue that we can have and address that issue maybe on a special forum or a special a night of a committee meeting, let's say in Ward 1, and invite everyone in to come in and make comments on that, on whatever progress has been made. But so far, I haven't seen progress, not to the extent that we've been trying to do for many years, quite a few years in fact.
Larry, can I just add something? So, actually, just, I think 2 weeks ago, the legislature the House just passed the 10-year transportation plan for the state, which now includes Panaway Manor and the sound barriers in that area.
Oh.
The reason that's so important is because any federal money that comes to New Hampshire has to go through the DOT, and if a project is not in the 10-year plan, that money can't be used for that project. So the first step is to get yourself into the 10-year plan, and then when funding is made available for various reasons, you're already eligible to be able to use that money. So we are now, well, the bill hasn't yet been signed by the governor, but there's no reason to believe that it won't be. Once that's signed, then we can assume that we're in their schedule. Last time I heard, it was supposedly maybe 2 years before they start work on it. This has to do with the fact that this project is part of an attempt to use the breakdown lane of 95 as an additional lane when traffic is too high. And when they do that, that impacts those neighborhoods even more. And so it was decided to fold this funding into that project as part of that alleviation of traffic noise. The other part is that some areas did not get included, for example, around New Franklin School, which did not get included because the metrics used by the DOT have to do with making assumptions as far as the noise impact on a piece of property that is occupied by a single-family home, not by a school. So it's not just one family that gets impacted in a school, it's like hundreds of kids. And they have no way of accounting for that. So that's been left out. But one of the things that is worth looking into considering for us in the city is there some way that we ourselves as a city can create the noise barrier needed for that school property? And it could be as simple, well, maybe not simple, but it could be as easy as maybe looking at plantings, trees, bushes, whatever we think is effective in mitigating the noise. And I've reached out to the University of New Hampshire to see if there are experts there who could advise us and get the city to look at mitigating those noise through those measures ourselves, because that was not included. So, okay.
A question, so as far as you can see, we should hear rather soon about the details of whatever has been passed. I think that's something that would be so obviously a public, worthwhile to have some sort of forum just on that subject alone. And the idea that you raise about trees and other areas of mitigation, if the funding isn't sufficient to cover everything, I think can be brought up at that point in time. I mean, I wouldn't want, I think it affects so many neighborhoods along I-95 that it's definitely our business, at least to get the word out and to make sure that people feel comfortable enough to come in and comment on what the plans are. And that would probably necessitate having the state have the DOT come in and talk and give us a briefing at the same time. That would be really terrific, and we can schedule that. So do you think
I think John already knows because the DOT gave us the presentation to the city council on this very topic and the project they're planning. So it is kind of an official presentation that they gave us before the 10-year plan got approved.
Okay. And that's on video. What we were able to do through a lot of neighborhood engagement going to the 10-year highway plan hearings was get sound barriers for Panaway moved from a level 2 priority, which had never been funded and was just languishing, to level 1, connected with this adding of a breakdown lane. So it's in the 10-year plan and it's funded for the first time. So I think it's going to happen unless the whole 10-year plan gets there.
And it's worth pointing out that originally the city already set aside a plan to fund some of the costs when it was still a type 2 plan. But since it's now a type 1 plan, the city's not obligated to kick in anything, which would give us an opportunity to use that funding for the Franklin School.
All right, let's,
So I just had a question.
yeah, sure.
So you guys are talking about the sound, but wasn't there something about the fumes that we were also?
that's the
trains.
That's the trains.
Oh,
I'll be
oh,
able
is it
to
fumes?
comment on
This
that.
is,
Okay,
maybe related.
I know, it's like it's.
Peter, let's you and I chat about what's the best way to proceed on that, if at all. Okay, I mean, we can announce, we can have go to Franklin School and have people comment. We can have the city talk about whatever town plans they have. You know, so that may be worth a citywide neighborhood meeting with the participation. That's a good one, thank you. The other one that is underway is a citywide parking session that I was thinking about. The trains themselves and the fumes from them and the idling of the trains down, especially by Foundry Place, affects that whole neighborhood, the Islington Creek neighborhood, and they've been complaining for some time. They've even brought it before the city council, and on numerous occasions have made comments before the citywide neighborhood committee itself. What I found out some time ago is that there was a public hearing, and actually a docket on the merger of Pan Am Railways and CXX Transportation, an extremely large rail company. I think they're over 50 to 60 billion. Pan Am is 300 billion, so it's just kind of like a small thing. But Pan Am is merging with them, and
I believe they're owned by Warren Buffett's
yes,
organization.
that's right. As a result of learning about this, thanks to the city, I and 3 other neighbors in Islington Creek filed comments before the docket. We presented we were there during the special public hearing, a Zoom hearing, and I wrote final comments on the issues involving our own neighborhood, Islington Creek, and some solutions around that. That has been filed, and I expect at least one paragraph in this merger of 51 billion and 300 million. I think we'll get 2 paragraphs out of it. But one thing that was a surprise, and that is the president of CXX promised that he would look into the matter very seriously, and ordered his vice president to come and talk to us about this, which he did. He and several other staff members from Albany showed up in the middle of the winter. We were able to talk to them about what the problem is and several solutions, and they were waiting for the merger to be approved, but they promised several things already. One is going to clean up the yard. Number 2, get all the railway cars that are not being used out of here. 3, seriously consider Rockingham Junction as a major switching area rather than the switching area in front of Foundry Place. And 4, they promised, and they don't have to promise this, they have brand new equipment compared to Pan Am. And as a result, that should mitigate some of the noise and some of the smell. We are very encouraged by this. I didn't think that, I thought we'd get a good boot, you know where, or the short change. But they are serious about this, as we were serious to file in a federal docket. And I will probably have the vice president show up either at the city council or at this forum here with a reporter to tell us what they were going to do after the merger takes place. So we don't necessarily have to make a big deal of this. The work has been done as much as we can do at this point, but we did get, from a transportation point of view, national recognition. Probably the biggest pain that they ever had, and they're glad to get rid of us. Nevertheless, the issue is being addressed, and much to my surprise, the outcome.
Well, thank you, Larry, for doing that. That's great.
National Night Out.
Larry, they move that
Sure.
switching, what would happen to the land? Would
That's
they need less land?
Thank you, that's a very good question. It's a question that we asked the city manager, I know how difficult it is to buy something. The city actually coming forward and buying a piece of property, you know, it's like the school, the school down in Ward 3, I guess it is. For $10 million, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a big deal, you know, it's a big deal. And it takes, you know, all kinds of time to do that. To answer your question directly, if the business case allows them to move most or all of their switching to Rockingham Junction, which is 6 miles south of Foundry Place, there will be some land there that probably could be available for sale. Now, we all know what's underneath all of that. When they built the garage, they had to pay, what, $400,000 or $500,000 to mitigate some of the stuff. On the other hand, for parks and recreation, it has some merit to at least look into it. And it was one of the things that I was planning to do, to talk to the city manager and actually say, you know, maybe we want to look into this. The city has been very supportive of us, but because they had numerous lawsuits, they really didn't want to jump into this particular fray, and I don't blame them. But we did have a Zoom. The vice president of the Northeast region was at that, of CXX was at that Zoom, and the city manager was there, and the meeting was like about 20 minutes, but I think the whole reason for the Zoom was to make sure that 4 residents of Islington Creek were not the only ones at all who were complaining that the city of Portsmouth was definitely behind us, and they were. And I'm very proud to have worked with the city on this particular thing. I think they did a terrific job. We didn't say very much about it for good reason. Nothing has happened yet. Filing and getting comments before federal docket doesn't count for anything. What does count is the action at the end, and we'll find out very soon just how serious the CXX is about helping our neighborhood. Yes?
Just a question about, you know, thinking about the future of that area is, there was a greenway, Islington Creek Greenway project.
Yes.
I don't remember if it was a master plan or an actual design. Is that complete, do you know?
If I remember, I don't know the answer to that, but maybe one of you two did. You're talking about entering the city by way of, I think, Market Street or you know, as you come into the city, there was going to be greenway on both sides. Is that what I'm referring to? Are you talking about the strip?
I think it's the strip.
It's the strip across.
Yes. But I'm not really, I saw it come across as a designer, I saw it come across as
right.
An RFP or something, but I guess my point is, if that area is potentially part of that design, maybe maybe the city could reach out to the designers and you know, get some ideas for future development of that.
John?
The greenway is being negotiated with each developer of the parcels along the North Mill Pond. So it's an exaction from those developers. And you're right, it would go from Bartlett all the way over to Sagamore. So, you know, I don't know what the timetable of that would be. I don't think the city could do it before the land's developed. But it will be part of 105, for example, 105 Bartlett.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, if it was more of a planning exercise, the greenway, without the constraints of immediate time or immediate development or money of you know, procuring land, it might be an interesting thing just to put out there to envision what that area might have the potential of being from the voice of a group of people who really know that context and what's going on development.
I think that's true. We had thought about suggesting to CXX that they may want to sell that land or donate it. or one or the other. And I think that's probably, it'll be the next thing that we're gonna talk about, because if they go up to, anything that we can encourage them to do all their switching in another location would help this particular issue and help all along those tracks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And I think that will be useful. It's right on the top of our agenda at the next step. We have to get them to stop the idling as much as they can and the fumes. That's the first priority there. All right, let me move on, if you have no objection, to National Night Out. That's August 2nd. That's a big deal. I normally and will continue to manage that in the sense that it's more of a coordination function, but I will need someone to help me with that and, as we go forward. And that is slated for, I think, the 2nd or the 3rd of August. It's, is everyone here aware of National Night Out? Okay. And then the citywide parking session, the citywide parking and the parking program in Islington Creek is soon to be resolved one way or the other. The parking program in Islington Creek was a success from the neighbors that I spoke to. However, the city did have a survey, and the results of that survey should be out very soon. And yeah, and it would it would help us. We did hear, I was on a Zoom call with the parking division, and they gave, in my view, almost an unintelligible statistical outcome of what they found during the parking permit program trial. No opinions were given, only some sort of what they call synopsis. I was a bit disappointed in that. But the city manager did promise to make the survey public, which it should be. And if the city doesn't take charge of that in a proper way, in other words, make it as transparent as possible and tell us if they want to go forward with parking, the idea of a parking permit program, then we will. At least I believe it's proper for us to do that. And the last time we had a session like that, we had Peter Rice and we had Ben Fletcher, and they gave some results. The audience was about 40 or 50 people jammed into the City Hall audience. They were mad as hell. We had diverse opinions all over the place. And that will happen again because those are very, very helpful when the public makes comments like that, because you get all the different variations of what a program is supposed to be. So I'd like to do that as an agenda item if the city doesn't do that themselves. Okay. So those are the immediate neighborhood issues. We have the usual ones down below in the slide presentation here: sidewalk safety and other things and issues with city agencies like we have tonight. Nothing like sound barriers, for example, but very, very important. I'd like to think that this is a place where people can make comments freely, and that's why I like the idea of using the library as one source. Sometimes we get a few people, sometimes we don't. So, but tonight was more of an administrative night than anything else. Yes.
So the holiday lights.
Oh, the holiday lights is December.
Right.
That's our choice. Usually the mayor asks us to do it.
It usually kicks off like Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, about Thanksgiving, and then the holiday lights just before Christmas.
Yeah.
It's requires everybody to be involved in that. It is very much neighborhood things. We got about I think we had about 35 to 40 applications and people who wish to make their light displays public. And it was interesting, but it's a lot of work. And it means that it ties up the entire November and December among all of us. I mean, it's really, each one of us have to do a little something. Anybody who's skilled with computers, for example, maybe you are, I don't know. It would be something for them to do. And it's a fair amount of management too. And then all of us go out and actually vote on whatever board we're selected, we vote on the ones that we get together. It's a fair amount of work. If we see that the numbers are declining, I would pause. And at any point in time, if we have a majority rule on this, I won't offer. I just won't. You know, it's up to us. We decide if we want to do it. The mayor can ask us, but we can still decide. I think it's beneficial. It was beneficial during the pandemic. Hopefully, we'll be out of the pandemic. There'll be other things that we can deal with. All right. Thank you for pointing that out. Forming the committees. During the first one is CNC awareness campaign. Of all the things that we've been talking about, that is the one that bothers me most. One of the neighbors at our last meeting raised the point that she really didn't know what we're all about. Why should I call or contact the CNC about anything? Because I don't even know what they do. Oh, it's nice that they do the light thing and the National Night Out. Thank you very much. But is that all that we're about? And so she was suggesting an awareness campaign, a program. And that may involve newsletters, changes in meetings like at the library here, and Zoom as a part of every meeting, which is fairly easy to do. And we can certainly Zoom more often than not if necessary.
As long as we have it in the right place.
Yeah, that's right. But the newsletters and getting support from the city to work with us, that requires a lot of work. And the awareness might start with, like I was trying to break down the mission of the committee to be, as I say, advocates for the neighborhoods. The mission statement is fairly long, but that portion jumped out at me, and we just need someone to give that a lot of thought and present an idea to us as to how we can increase our awareness, because it can be a lot of work. But then again, we're not all about National Night Out or Holiday Lights Contest. We're about what neighborhoods are most concerned about. You know, and that's what I would like to do. How to make us much more aware. I know the city council has maybe similar problems, but this is our problem. And we kind of go along year after year, and we really maybe need a little more vibrancy. Maybe it's just a public relations thing. We just need to improve our public relations. It's not easy. It's not easy. It may be to change what we do. If that's the case, we'll change if we have to. And but I want someone to, or I want a group, one or two people to work on that and report to us. Are there any volunteers?
Are you looking for
Right now, or
I'm not looking at anybody.
I'll help with it for sure.
Good. All right, thank you.
I was actually interested in brainstorming for some ideas as well.
I think we should develop a certain time and do our own brainstorming.
We can do that.
And then make it one person's responsibility, you know. That's what we do, and that's what we need to do.
We can act as a committee. If once the two of you get some ideas. We'll have a Zoom, and then we'll just, we'll argue it out. I mean, it isn't arguing it out, it's just let's talk it out and see what makes sense as a whole committee. Okay, thank you.
Multi-pages from it.
Sure. All right, so the other one we talked about, forum changes. We know that some of the more distant forums, well, what I call more distant from downtown, wards 1, 3, and 4 are more remote. And to have in-person forums there as well as Zoom is not a bad idea. From a technical point of view, having the forums either here or City Hall, for the most part, seem to make sense. And the IT department and the city have told us that it's much more complicated to get a recording done of the meeting as well as getting Zoom in some of the schools that are in that neighborhood. I don't know about the firehouse. They're working on it. So that would be something interesting there. Nevertheless, that would be terrific. We can have a special Zoom just on awareness and see how best to proceed on that. And that I would like to do. So if you could turn to the next slide, that would be okay. Thank you. All right, so we covered some of this already. The next question is, how many meetings do we want? Formal meetings like the one we're having right now. How many meetings do we want for the remainder of the year? We've had, this is our second one. And do we want 2 more or do we want 3 more?
I don't know, is it a problem to have it like once a month or once a week?
Well, we have a lot going on, right? Let's say we agree on the forums.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot going on already, you know? Depending on how you do. Normally, it's nice to have something once a month, or with a pause of, let's say, for summertime or something like that. I mean, but I have dates at the next slide, but at least I would say we want at least 2 more, especially in the fall, maybe 3. We have a special meeting for the National Night Out, but that can be just those who are working on the committee and then the neighborhoods themselves. So it's your suggestion, or you can agree with me, whichever you prefer. Yes.
Just a question, not having really participated in this before, how are the committee meetings typically organized? Are they focused on, you know, we meet and we focus on Portsmouth 400 or we focus on awareness, you know, or is it just going down a list, an agenda list and kind of hitting everything?
That's a very good question. The formal meetings can be, the issues that are addressed with me, besides having public comment, which is number 1, can be at the suggestion of any committee person. So anybody can suggest a topic. I have suggested some topics already, and we've talked about a few of them, and they can be part of the meeting. Doesn't necessarily require us to vote on anything. It's just getting more information out and inviting the public to come in and comment on what we're talking about. So it's more of a formal meeting, and historically we used to take attendance at those formal meetings. So like we have 4 a year with what the requirement is in the bylaws. So we decide on the agenda, but essentially they're more formal meetings. So that's the answer.
And so the Portsmouth 400, that's this September, right? Is it, or this fall?
Portsmouth 400 has not identified any particular date yet. Okay. National Night Out is August.
I guess I'm trying to.
The 400th year is 23.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly in 2020.
I guess I'm trying to think about what we want to do. So first I'm trying to figure out what we need to do. So then we can build on that, you know, and maybe come up with a plan to deal with, you know, kind of the things that are in front of us and then you know, really find complementary things we want to do to kind of build on that. But
I agree.
Larry?
Yes.
Just suggest that maybe in the Portsmouth 400 issue, maybe we could use this year's night out to give it to let people know about this idea that maybe for next year's event, each neighborhood could think of contributing something as part of their history or their ward or their area or the neighborhood. So give them a little lead time to think about it. So that next year when things start to happen, maybe there might be some ideas ready.
Yes, I know, I like that idea, and what that is ahead of time, you set up some sort of either poster or billboard or something, and we have Portsmouth 400 people work with us, and as we go through the neighborhoods, because we have defined neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods, there is a definite representative there. The neighborhoods have fun there, the police, fire, and public works go there. This is a good time to have Portsmouth 400 people circulate around, and so we can help in that department. That's an excellent idea. I like that. All right, the forums, I'd like to have Lori, who's been very, very diligent in organizing the forums, come up with a suggestion or suggestions as to how many forums we should have and where they should be located. Can you do that?
Yeah, I actually have been thinking about it, you know, long and hard. I know they first started in 2000, at least the dates that I have started in 2017. We had 3 there, and in 2018 we had 2, and we covered all 5. So then we went to 2019 and we did 2 that year. I think that was, we had 1 in 2020. It was COVID time, we were losing some altitude. It took us a while to get started, and when we got started, then I had 2 in, or 3 in 2021. So right now we are missing to finish up the whole thing. I was going to try to push it really hard so that we could have just gotten, you know, 5 every 2 years. That was the goal. So we had 5 in 2 years, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 3 years. And so now we have Ward 4 that we need to, oh, we had that already. We need 5, 3, 1, 2. And I was just gonna, I can't really do, that's a tough one to do 4, but I could do 3 in 1 year. You know, it takes a while to get get everybody's appointment and get it, you know, it takes at least 3 months or so just to get one to happen.
So does,
But once it happens, it'll be quick, it'll be easy, as long as we can get their schedule.
so would you, you're recommending 3 for this year?
Yeah, 3, and then we can just do the last one, maybe we can push it and do 3 and 3, and then we can do that one schedule.
Okay, now what that involves, of course, she contacts the city has been very helpful. It's usually a Zoom and a in-person presentation of the fire department, police department, public works primarily, and the mayor and city manager usually attend or their representatives. And then the folks in the particular ward have the opportunity to question them if they want.
So, yeah, I'm just gonna say, because the last time we had one, you know, when there's no issues going on, people don't show up. And last time, the board was 4, and there didn't seem to be a lot of issues, and people didn't show up. And, you know, I don't know, you know, we certainly do issues when they're happening, but that's not, I'm not quite sure. You know, I'm trying to figure out, it's fun to go to, I love these things, I get to see a little bit about the neighborhood and see what's happening around the city. But remember the last time we had it, there was hardly anybody there, and it was sad because we had this entire force of people that are just ready and willing to answer our questions.
It was that particular point that I raised the thought that maybe we should make some sort of change it there. Now, I know the city council loves this sort of thing. All the city councils love it. It gives the people in the wards, they listen to the people in the wards. And on the other hand, I often think to myself, have we been doing the same thing for the last 10, 12 years the same way, and it's just not interesting anymore? Or maybe there are not
There's
enough
no
issues.
information that's
Yeah,
coming
maybe
up
there are
that
not
way.
enough issues. The city publishes the forums, the newspapers occasionally publish a forum. I go on social media and I go on others and I announce them 2 or 3 times. And that's about the extent that we can do. And if people don't come forward, then it's kind of like saying, well, we don't quite need that. So I began to think maybe we should change a little bit, maybe like have a specialty forum, have a legislation forum.
So, yeah, that's what
You
you're
know,
gonna
something
have
like
at
that,
some point.
something a little bit different.
But are we gonna call it from Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it's gonna have to be under a different, we're gonna have to redo the entire thing?
Yeah, that's right, it can be a ward, you're quite right, it can be the entire city, it can be a special forum where people just, such as legislation, and they can come in and ask questions if they want.
So having said that, are we gonna wait? Because really, if we go for the ward forum, it's ward driven.
It is ward driven, that's right.
And I'm not sure that, like, the next one is, Ward 5.
Well, the question is that we can
that would be-
we can always ask, the Friends of the South End to sponsor their own forum. So what that means is that we would make the contacts, get the city officials to show up. They will do their own, using their own mailing lists, get a lot of the people to be there. Now, anybody in the city can attend any of these forums, so we would continue doing our own thing. Oh, the difference is that Ward 5 would be more or less running, they do their special advertising for this. And they may have their special issues. I don't know what those issues are all the time.
Are we bringing the
You only
city
live
people?
there, but
Are we bringing the city people?
we would, yeah, it's easy for us to bring the city officials in. That's not the question. The question is, if we have, let's say, Ward 5, Fosse, do take charge of this in effect. It's a special, it's for the South End alone. We probably would get a little more interest. A little more people would show up, and if they had any,
Only if there's really an issue.
but they would want to do that. They would have to say, yes, the issues are sufficient for our neighborhoods in Ward 5. That may not be just Ward, it'd be the neighborhoods in that area, that we want a special forum for our own. That's okay. That'd be fine. That's one thing that would generate interest, sure.
Just thinking, if we're trying to get the word out about the CNC, what we do, and we're trying to establish a criteria for successful forums that are attended, everybody shows up for issues, right? They mobilize for issues, not necessarily because they live next to somebody else. And so would it make sense to send out like a citywide survey, like thinking Google, which is not the right word, like online survey, that just raise some of the neighborhood issues in the city and ask people for what they were interested in talking about, and allow it to be a mechanism to let people understand who we are and what we do.
That certainly has a lot of merit.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. You're saying address some concerns that go on in that area?
Raise a list of 10 topics that are directly affecting neighborhoods. Whether it's, clearing of snow or, speed of vehicles or, I guess I'm speaking out loud.
Yeah, right.
And allow people to, because I think one of the things is if nobody knows what we do, we want to make the distinction that not every concern in the city should come to us. However, we want to also celebrate the fact that there are things that we are doing and are able to kind of bring to other people's attention and work on. So, I don't know, just all.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to get the word out about that we exist and then let them know who we are and what our mission is. And then start there, just get the word out more than.
Do away with the word forums or
Oh, no, just
using
say
the word
that-
forums to do something?
I like the forums idea, actually, I attended the last one via Zoom. But I'm just saying that we should maybe reintroduce the CNC, just let people know that we're here and who we are, who the new members are, and former, existing members, and then go from there. And then we can introduce a survey. I love that idea. Introduce a survey, get a list of maybe 5 things that we can kind of introduce to them and have them thinking about what, maybe there's an issue in this area. And then give them an other box as well where they can insert an issue that they would like to talk about. Just an idea.
And it's the fact that I was saying that the results of the survey would actually establish the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
That the community would participate in creating.
The forum in that case would be the end result. All right, so that's not a bad idea. Let me think out loud about that. I have 20 representatives of neighborhoods. They're from National Night Out from last year. That's right, yep. And we have the names and addresses and phone numbers. And so therefore, that's one source right away. And we would then send them to their representatives. And we'd ask the representatives to use their mailing list to send the survey out to them, okay? And so that's one way. And then the usual traditional way would be the city would announce it. The public social media, I would send out something on our own mailing list, which has about 200 people on it. And then anybody who knows neighbors to contact them. So we have the cross section, but the focus would be on those 18, 19 neighborhood representatives.
So are you coming up with a list of questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it'd be a list of
exactly
questions
what's going on.
it'd be questions about, what's wrong with them, what's important to them, would they be interested in having the city address their particular concerns in their own neighborhood. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it could be different ideas. I'm not going to go in with and just spout out, what the question should be. But
And it could be,
but you're asking the questions, and if you get some interesting responses, you would then a forum or a special meeting can address those. And we can bring them to attention. So I mean, that's like, the forum would be like the end result of this, or multiple forums would be the end results of this, if it was a particular neighborhood issue. People are reticent to come forward and as a neighborhood, so, or maybe they just don't want to be bothered, but some
well,
of them
maybe
do have.
they're satisfied.
Mhm.
That's what,
In any case, I like the idea,
We
but
can find out.
maybe you guys could consider that as part of the awareness, and it would interact with the forum. In the meantime, could I recommend that Lori, you set up a forum
okay,
for Ward 5, and why don't we ask the Ward 5 posse if they want to sponsor the meeting? And at least we get that, we do two things at once.
So we're gonna set it up first? and
Oh,
then
yeah, no,
ask
we do
them?
the setup,
Okay, so
exactly.
it's, so the date that I have there is May, I don't have a specific date, but
All right.
I was gonna aim for May. And then the other one was gonna be, is that August?
Well, let's start with May,
So
because
it's really by, so then those two would wrap up.
all right.
What's the other one, 5 and?
And, so I think maybe 8, like August.
Would that would be for a different ward or?
Yeah, that would definitely be for Ward 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a state representative from Ward 3, I gotta say there's a lot of developmental issues going on in Ward 3. Now, we've got West End Yards, a whole new neighborhood. We have the community campus, also in Ward 3.
Is that Ward 3? Yeah.
We have the new development in Banfield Road, the Millionaire Row there. And of course, it's prime location, Banfield Road. And then there's a new development that's not yet broken ground, it's gonna be on Beverly Hill Road, set back, I don't know, 50 units or something like that. Then the Cinemagic is gonna be transformed into another development there.
It is, it's a living place, a living
I
development?
think so, it's gonna be condos, I believe.
That's
So what I'm suggesting is, there might be a forum, that we could use that to kind of bring people in to talk about the development going on in that ward, and how they feel about it, what kind of inputs they have, and maybe some of the new people who are now living in those areas could be part of the, come out and tell us.
So what happens if they all wanted to come and complain about it?
Well,
We don't want to encourage that.
Well, we do want to hear what people are thinking.
It's true, we
I
normally
don't know,
don't.
do we really want to hear bad stuff?
No, I mean,
We do want to hear
this is
something.
not bad stuff, this is maybe the impacts that they see in their neighborhoods and how they could be mitigated perhaps, I
Or
mean.
better.
Yeah, I mean, it's not personal, but it's I don't know of any other ward that's having explosive development like that.
Well, because I think,
Because
also
it's
like
on
they
the
sit on the
sand,
outskirts, so everything is going outwards and.
Yeah, right, I mean, the
everything's
downtown is maybe commercial businesses,
Yeah.
hotels, businesses, but these are residents, this is people.
So let me just trace it through just one more. And I like the idea, right? So if you talk about land use issues, all right, and people come in and they say, well, I don't like this or I don't like that, it's not necessarily our bag here. Not that we wouldn't, I would take on a land use issue if we saw something really immoral about it, okay? But you have all these things converging, all the developments converging. And you have with all those developments converging, you do have traffic and safety issues. You could have crime issues. You might have trash and other issues. I mean, you might have a number of issues that we normally address, would address, to getting different people in. The land use issue itself, we probably wouldn't. In other words, the event has already happened, it's already a public meeting, we don't get involved in that. Unless, of course, it's really something that's cockeyed. However, the fallout from that, which in this case could be like in Islington Creek, parking problem, okay? The fallout of having these developments, the traffic issues and traffic problems and speeding and everything else that goes along with it, that is something that is in our perusal, for sure, okay? So I kind of like the idea myself.
I mean, there are significant traffic issues.
Yeah, no, there'd be a lot of stuff going on, and that should get an interesting set of comments from
And this is kind of a related thing, I'm not suggesting this is so.
Look, anytime you get a group of people together, well, the anger, that's even better as far as I'm concerned. Because then what you do is you get the essence of what's going on.
Another related issue here, and I bring this up because last week, our legislature just voted a bill down, and it's a nationwide issue that's popping up all over the country. California is an example. And that is that because of the affordable housing crisis everywhere in our state, everywhere in the nation, there is a strong movement. I don't know exactly who's the mover and shaker behind it or who are those people, but with the idea that we should be able to force municipalities to not allow single-family zoning anymore, but to allow instead up to 4 units on the same property to be built or rehabbed into 4 units where 1 unit was before.
Yeah, right.
Without any municipality having the legal ability to require additional requirements or restrictions, even though we're going from a 1-family unit to 4 families. So water, sewer, parking, all that stuff, not allowing municipalities to have any restrictive issues when that transformation happens. And the motivation behind it, what people are saying about it, is we need to do this to make more affordable housing. California passed a statewide law last year to do this. Incidentally opposed by housing advocates, civil rights groups, and environmentalists, supported by developers and real estate agents. And this bill that we had last week in the legislature, that was the exact same bill. And it was voted down. But it was a close vote. And I'm just bringing this up because, you know, when you see these developments and you see the impact on sewer, water, parking, traffic, all these issues.
Infrastructure.
Something like converting let's say Panaway Manor.
So a
People
lot of
start
people,
buying up Panaway Manor houses, and if they're allowed to make them into 4 units each, that will change that neighborhood.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
So I just want to bring this to your awareness that there is this idea that this would help solve the affordable housing thing. And the advocates in California point out that when this happens,
only if people are charging the affordable housing.
exactly, they point out that if those units are actually affordable, if they get built, that's one thing. If they're not affordable, then all you're doing is creating more unaffordable housing. So anyway.
That's right, that really puts our land use boards into one hell of a
I
mess.
bring it up because they're talking about it now in New Hampshire.
All over New Hampshire, yeah.
Well, there are groups that are pushing this idea.
But it failed for this session.
It failed.
I guess, you know, one of the things about, you know, raising the awareness for this group is also to clearly define what we do not do.
Oh, yeah,
right, and
absolutely.
so, to limit that, you know,
Right.
people coming in with
Yeah.
a lot of passion,
Yeah.
on something, to make it clear that, well,
That's
that's great, but there's really nothing we can do about it, and,
Right.
you know, and, you know, to be as clear as possible in front, so people showing up are not then getting even more angry because they showed up for something that they think is one thing, and that's something else.
Well, that's very interesting. That would really change the landscape. Let me move along. It was suggested that the city council hold public comment at some of our forums. I'm gonna let that pass right now because.
I did want to mention that
Oh,
we're
okay.
looking at, if we continue the neighborhood forums, having public dialogue sessions there. We haven't had public dialogue sessions, which are two-way conversations. And there's a strong feeling in this council that we'd like to get out and do that in the neighborhoods. We're also looking at getting the technology set up so that we can have city council meetings in Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 5, and we're close. And so
We would be interested in that, would we not? Yes.
But we're not there yet.
And that would really increase the awareness of our mission, because we would sponsor that event. In other words, the city council would do whatever they have to do to get their public dialogue session before, and then we would be up next, or it would be a forum next. In other words, you have your public dialogue session, and then you have your city administrators. Either way, either whether it's a meeting or it's a forum. And I think 3 and 4 are the more remote ones. And so that could be a good time to try this out at least once, because it's far away from the downtown. The downtown usually gets heard first. Ward 5 is very vocal anyhow. And so that's interesting. If you're agreeable, if everyone here is agreeable to this idea, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, all right. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Would we like to do the holiday lights this year, or shall we wait on that one?
I think we should be able to pull this off.
Can you just explain what's needed to do that, as for someone who's brand new?
Yeah, of course. So really, it's our mandate to go around and recruit the people to come into the holiday lighting. We'll come up with whether they're applying for a traditional or, creative, or leaving it. I think last time we decided we didn't want to really define it. The first time we defined it, and everybody was choosing different ones, and we had no people to judge for the creative one, and we got a lot of them were creative, so. That's how it became.
About non-creative section.
It's what normally triggers it.
And
Is
so,
it the mayor?
Yeah, so the mayor
The
triggers
mayor
it.
runs around and he says, well, we can collect some money and give it the prices. Personally, I don't care about prices for something like this, but.
But people do.
Yeah, but
And
some
we had
people
little
do.
bonus, like $25 bonuses,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to say, here, you got an honorable mention for something.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so then we go around, and last time they chose to have the kids do it. It was cute to watch the kids do it.
So you guys did do it that way?
I think that's last time we did it. The first time we didn't. We just sort of jumped in the first time, and we didn't even have, the judges were even, it was challenging to get. The whole thing was challenging, because all of a sudden we got jammed up towards the end and had to have it done on a certain day.
Any complaints?
No,
The good news is we
I
have.
didn't hear a thing.
I was actually away and I was watching you guys, no, I did attend that one when Mark was still in the council.
That's right, that's
You
right.
guys were discussing how you were gonna do the voting, how the judging was gonna go.
How the judge is gonna take place, that's right. We have a business plan on how to do that. So in other words, it's already,
Yeah.
the
It was actually,
procedures are more or less all spelled out.
That's good.
The primary requirements are that the city will announce and the city signs them up. We promote a little bit, and then at the end, we judge, and then we tell the city council at the last meeting of the year, the winners. And we just, and then the mayor will announce the winners. Thank you very much. So,
it was a lot of fun driving around and judging.
it is, that's for sure. So we'll say yes to that.
Go like undercover cars or?
No, actually, at some point, we just said, people could tell we were judging. We got out, we were looking, we were walking in the yard, and then they were saying, can I help you? It's like, I'm sorry, we're one of the judges, we're just going to do this. People were very, couldn't wait.
And we will obtain that mailing list, which we have the right to do, and we will use it for surveys and others, and awareness. And so we'll add to that. The next thing on the agenda here is a committee to help increase awareness. We already talked about that. Thank you very much for the two of you. The last issue are issues that we need to address. At any point in time, anybody on this committee can raise issues about neighbors or neighborhood issues, there is no problem whatsoever. It can be a special subsection of any meeting, as some in the past have done. Kevin, if I could have the last slide, and then we want to get out of here. Okay. I proposed 3 more meetings, formal meetings. The August 17th one, we can decide whether we want that or not. The October 19th and the December 13th meeting, they're usually, it's important that we have at least those 2. We have an NNO in July, that's okay.
August.
And so.
For the NNO meeting?
Yeah, that's just what happens there is, I'll coordinate that particular session. The neighborhood representatives come in, they talk about any concerns that they have. We have the fire department, police department, and especially the police department to help to see if there's any special needs. Public Works jumps right in and talks about trash cans and things like that on that. And so that's a coordinating meeting, usually July 12th. August 2nd is the NNO event, as far as I know. Lori, you fill in the dates for the forums and talk to our colleagues here who volunteered on awareness. I think I like some of the ideas. And Lori, you're going to be a forum person, and we have Elaine and Peter as to handle the awareness. 400 I'll take care of for the moment. And holiday lights are all of us, but we'll need a project, what I call a project manager. All the manager has to do is read the script and change the script if they want to read the script, and then we'll tell you what the next step it has to be. So that's what I propose to do, at least at that point. And I have one more item, and that is elections. Lori, you want to raise some motion here on elections? What we talked about.
I know, and like, so what we're not gonna vote or anything?
No, we don't have to vote on anything. All right, let me handle it. I'll do it. The chair, vice chair, and secretary are up for grabs. Even my position, I'll be happy I'll be delighted to pass it on to someone else if they want it. It's thankless, thank you. We can have a special Zoom meeting that will last 15 minutes on the 3 positions. You nominate, and then we second, and then there's a vote. That's it. It's very, very fast. Okay. And so I suggest a special Zoom, so it isn't a big deal, and we just publish it at the next meeting. And the Zoom meeting will probably be in early April or something like that. If that's agreeable to you, then let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay? I have no other business. Do we have any other business?
Just wanted to clarify that I'd be interested in jumping in with Elaine and Peter on the awareness, and if I can kind of contain my participation really to the survey portion, I could.
That would be terrific.
I could be the lights.
Great. That's perfect.
Great.
That's perfect. Okay. I will, yes.
Just one other, I just wanted, because you may have seen in the paper recently, there was an announcement that there'll be kind of a recreation needs assessment done in the state, in the city, about what kind of recreation needs people would like to see.
Yes, I remember reading that.
So I think that's another good idea to get input on, to see that people, to make sure that all demographics are addressed in that by encouraging participation, and possibly even some kind of forum.
That would be interesting.
That would be very interesting.
I mean, it's a neutral topic, but everybody has their own ideas.
Yeah.
And
I like that. Anything else? Do I have a motion?
I think a motion
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, aye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No opposed, meeting's over, thank you.